Jordy Smith celebrating as he advances into the quarterfinals, and the local crowd eating it up as well. They love this guy and they want to see him claim a third victory here at Jefferies. What do you reckon, Pete? Is it going to happen in 2017?
Well, it very well could. I mean, you've got the last world title for South Africa going to 1977. 40 years later, why not? You know, Jordy Smith, I think, is in a very good place in his career, and a great opportunity, especially since he just advanced on and is now into the quarterfinals. But he is going to have a major matchup against somebody who has been on fire today in Felipe Toledo. But that's what we want to see, the best against the best.
So on the lookout now for our last quarterfinalist, and it's going to be a big fight between Michelle Perez and Julian Wilson. And they've had 4 previous head-to-head matchups, and Julian has Michelle's number 3-1. But Michelle did win their last exchange in this same round at Margaret River this season.
Well, again, conditions pretty much to forecast. The winds were supposed to be light and getting lighter, and so we got these glassy conditions. It almost feels like you'd like to have a little bit of that southern breeze blowing across the face to smooth things out, because as you can see, that little glassy bump, you get the rocks kind of adding a little bit. You've got this kind of fluff coming out of the channel. So the surfer's going to have to take note of that. And, you know, John had mentioned that during his heat, there was that bump on the face, and it affected how he rode the wave. So we'll see how these two can make adjustments, Michelle Perez or Julian Wilson. I mean, both of these guys, this is a major heat for them, but really feels like Julian Wilson has to keep up. He sits at that bottom end of the top 10 at 8th place. Great opportunity for him to make a major jump, being that a lot of the surfers ahead of him have bowed out. But he needs to get through this heat. He really does. He needs to get through this heat and even the next. And, you know, he could be at that potential where we're talking about him at the end of the season as a title contender. Of course, great work he's had in Portugal before with the wins there, and Pipeline, you know, again, right there in the mix. So those last 2 events, very strong for him.
Yeah, well, other than Tahiti, he's finaled every other stop from here on in. So he could be very dangerous. He needs a big result here to turn his year around. He's going to be hanging on to a 13th, I believe, at the end of the season already.
Well, you look at, you know, what he's been able to do the last few seasons here. You know, final and semifinal last 2 seasons. So, you know, just to be able to match that would be smart.
Excuse me, hanging on to a couple of ninths already, Julian. So, you can't slip up in these rounds anymore. Here we go. Michelle Perez getting things started here. Deep in the barrel. A lot of speed. Plenty of travel time, but no exit. Well, Julian can win this opening exchange now. Drives off the bottom. Little setup carve. Wants to stick close to this bowl. There's a nice little hook. Again, slicing out on the open face. Wants to mix things up now with a bit more of a vertical approach. No, he's going to go to the rail again. It's a deep carve. And there is that release in that tail. As Julian goes looking now for a finish on the inside. This wave, it's going to be difficult. A bit of foam on the face. He opts to kick out.
A lot of work done on that outside section. So obvious win in the first exchange going to Julian Wilson. Again, utilizing that swallowtail to have a little release, giving a little point of difference, but also holding that rail when needed. So nice start for Julian Wilson. Gets that momentum. Take a look here at the replay, and very deep on the point in the very beginning of this heat. I mean, you saw Michelle get caught behind, but this one, a much better paced wave. Took off in the same area as Michelle Perez, but he's able to get past the point on the top and get into that section where it slows up. Right here, it starts to give him that opportunity. And he executes 2 nice rail cars and then a little bit of mix, get some release, but always keeping the speed down the line. Wave let him down on the impossible section here, but I still feel like a very good score going to unfold for him.
And even though we're watching this in slow-mo, Pete, a big shift up in just the speed which Julian is carrying from that last heat especially.
Well, again, just look at the combination here. You know, again, 2 big arcs, but seeing he has to keep moving very quickly down the line. And he does that. Make sure that he's going to get out to that open face. Felt like he was going to go much more vertical on that move, but back out in the face again. And here's where he gets the release. Punches the fins. Nope, next one. I mean, he did so many carves on the outside, but there, straight to the bottom, gets the release. That swallowtail, you know, you can just punch the fins and it'll drift very nicely.
So it's a solid start for Wilson, an 8.17 without the big exclamation point at the end on the inside. The wave didn't really serve up a finishing move, but he tore it. 8.17. That's what he needed. You look at these two competitors, their run through the draw. They've been putting up some solid numbers. Michel Perez, a couple of 16-point heat score totals, 16 plus. Julian, though, with that 10-point ride. Michel's pretty reliable for those excellent scores, but I feel like Julian has the capability to go higher on the scale if he really lets go.
I would agree. And, you know, to be able to put an excellent number on the first exchange, especially when you see Michel Perez only posting the 2.17. At this point, it's very important for Michel to at least get himself right up there with Julian Wilson to keep the pressure.
Always have admired Michel Perez's fight, and he's been one of the few surfers that's been able to turn around a big heat in this event. You know, people have been hard to chase down. Michel did really well against Italo to turn it. Italo was in control, or seemingly in control of that heat from the outset, but Michel never gave up.
Well, you remember there was an 8.5 in the very beginning of the heat, and that really was what kept Michel in the game, but there was a few mistakes through the middle part of that heat. Not able to execute on some waves, but he did. He kept that fight going. And you're right. There hasn't been a ton of heats where someone has been able to claw back into it.
The wind has laid down just a little bit. That's going to allow these two surfers to really load up on these rails as Michel gets started. Into the pocket. A lot of body torque through those wraps from Perez. He tries to throw his board vertically, goes down again. So a bit of a shaky start here.
Well, and it's, you know, he's feeling like he's got to do a little extra. And that's the pressure that's been applied by the excellent wave score by Julian Wilson. So he goes much more vertical, and he paid the price. Excuse me.
Just under 25 minutes to go, and have a look at what's coming our way at the moment.
Oh, it's still pumping. You know, this is where the commissioners are going to have to make the decision on what we're going to do for the rest of the day.
Look at that.
Bombing set still out there. I mean, we've got another pulse going to start showing up in the next day, 24 hours, and you just wonder when it's going to show.
And here we go, Julian Wilson up once again on a good sized wave. Clean start to this ride. The major turns are going to start coming now as he digs in, drives his board right back into the bowl. A full direction change. It still has a lot of wall to work with down the line here. Huge float. He plugs it, tries to get into the barrel. No, he pulls through the back as the wave shuts down.
Again, a lot of work done on the outside section, though. I think that it's going to be another good score. You know, even though the inside section did not provide, it looked like it was going to. It had that double up. Went to the maneuver, went to that big floater, hang time. Free fell to the bottom. And poor Michel is just out of position for the rest of the set.
And I think what Julian was doing there with that final move, the float, was basically looking to maintain some speed to set up a big finish on the inside. I think if he knew that wave was going to shut down, he might have actually unloaded something a little bit more dynamic to finish that ride off.
Still feel like it's going to be a pretty good number. It's going to be able to back up the 8.17. And with Michel Perez, no real solid rides yet. Big time momentum to Julian Wilson.
Numbers rolling through, the set wave still coming. Strider Wasilewski, must be hard to contain yourself, my friend.
Let me tell you, it is a glorious day out here. It's so beautiful. The wind is laid down. and the waves are just pumping. I heard Pete commenting on, you know, the commissioners having to make a decision of what to do with the day, and it's be a tough one. And I mean, Pete, what do we have on fold here? We've been looking at that forecast really tight. We know what, you know, the winds and the swell, and look like the swell actually comes back in this afternoon, evening. I mean, what do we have on tap?
Well, I mean, if you look at what we're doing with the tide, we got a filled-in tide. That's the one thing I think the commissioners will take into consideration. But if you watch this replay real quick, that double-up section, you thought that there was going to be a barrel in there. What do you think happened to it? Why didn't it go for the tube? Still there, Strides?
Okay. Yeah, still there. You know, he was looking at it. I think he just kind of mistimed the play. He waited a little too long off the bottom, and that thing just kind of took off on him, and it didn't have the big open barrel that I think he thought it was going to have, and the tide getting high, you know, it didn't have its chance to bottom out and go square like we saw like Mick Vanning's wave do this morning on the lower tide, and I think that's what he thought was going to happen, and then he found himself just behind this section. He would have been underneath and inside of it at a lower tide, but instead it went kind of fat and it kind of crumbled down on him, so he had no choice. He had to pull through the back. He was too far behind it.
Well, he'll be pretty, I think, happy with the score that came through, a 7.77. So he has now put Michel Perez in that dreaded situation of chasing 2 rides and a heat score total of 15.95. But I think that wave just wasn't really cooperating at the end with Julian there. But like you said, Pete, still got some work done on the outside. That's why the number still went pretty high.
I mean, he'd be pretty happy. I think that, of course, putting up a total of 15.95, near excellent, and still plenty of time to be able to build upon that. It's a great start. It's exactly what he wants to be doing here. And very important. We talked about how important this heat is for Julian to really kind of make a big jump up that rankings.
Well, the dream's still alive for Geordie Smith here, making it through to the final 8 at the Corona Open. Geordie's with Rosie.
Well, Geordie Smith, has been quite a rigmarole for you to make it to the quarterfinals. Yesterday, the heat getting cut short. This morning, have to do the resurf. You know, you must be pretty relieved to get that round 5 out of the way.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to get that one out the way. I think it was bad form yesterday, pretty much. Should have probably started off from where it left off. I think that was the fair thing, but everything happens for a reason, you know. So Philippe surfed a great heat this morning as well. He went absolutely mad. Tried my best to surf on the face, but he went to the air and did what he does best.
And you're looking at this heat, Connor Coffin yourself, last year Portugal semi-finals, world title implications. You carrying any of what you learned from last year into this clash with Connor Coffin?
Oh yeah, you always have it in the back of your mind, but every day's new, so you got to start fresh and judge it for what it is. It's 4 to 6 feet and pumping out there. You just want to get those walls and just try and dominate.
Well, with the forecast the way it is, you've probably been keeping a close eye on it. So, you know, the conditions on hand or what we have on offer later, what are your thoughts?
To be honest with you, I think tomorrow might be a bit too big, just for high performance out here. But as it is right now, I think there's a lot of heats to surf, you know, if you want to make it all the way to the final. So it's just about preserving the energy as much as you can.
Well, Geordie, what's the prep going into the quarterfinals from here?
Just go rest up and get some food in the belly.
Dig it, go do that. Well done.
Thank you, Rosie. Geordie Smith through to the quarters. And one thing I picked up on, Pete, from all of those surfers that have surfed this 5th round is they've been a little gassed during their post-heat interviews, just sucking in some pretty big breaths.
We also have to take into consideration what happened yesterday. I mean, it was a big day yesterday. A lot of paddling, you know, a lot of effort on each and every wave. So even that can add into the fatigue. And if you know, during a competition day, you're going hard, it's hard to actually keep prepared thinking that the next day is going to be one of those days too, and you got to hydrate. You know, sometimes that's going to come into consideration, you know, and I understand that. It's going to be a long day for anybody who has to be in those last 2 heats of round 4 through to a finish today. So, you know, I'm wondering if the commissioner's taking that in consideration as well.
Well, it could be a bit of an advantage there for those surfers that made that jump directly through to the quarters. And especially the likes of Gabriel Medina and Federico Moraes, who progressed yesterday. Well, just under 18 minutes to go. Julian Wilson still out in front. Michel Perez still comboed, needing a 2-wave total of 15.95. Let's find out what's to come. We'll check in with Rosie Hodge.
Well, our Commissioner, Kieran Perot, there's obviously great waves on offer. You've mentioned how good the forecast is looking. You've had a chat with the surfers. What's the consensus?
Yeah, we've been pouring over the charts this morning. We've got a high tide coming up in about an hour. We've still got that wind kind of blowing out of the devil direction. It's starting to lay down now, but it's going to create some little wobble, I think, over the high tide. We're going to go on hold after this heat, wait till 12:45 for a possible restart at 1 o'clock. Gives us the ability to finish today still. Waves could be firing this afternoon. We'll reevaluate with a sort of slowly dropping swell today and another swell bombing in tomorrow morning. We may choose just to run the quarterfinals and come back and finish tomorrow.
And the way that Philip Toledo was surfing in this northwest wind, does that force you to rethink the whole dynamic on what you think about the northwest out here at Super Tube?
Sure. I mean, Felipe was surfing incredible out there, and I think there'll be no shortage of surfing like that this afternoon. That kind of wind makes it does make it tricky, but he made the most of that. He used it to his advantage, and that was awesome surfing. So I'm sure we'll see more of it as the day goes on and into tomorrow.
All right, well, thank you so much. We look forward to that next call.
Cheers, Rosie. So going on hold briefly, just waiting to see what this tide does to the lineup. As we see Michel Perez up, trying to break combination with this ride. Oh, a lot of speed. He carried through those first two turns, but
he fell right in front of his board.
Kind of got just whipped out onto the flats then, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and I think he's fortunate he didn't hit it, but wow, falling in front of the pointy nose like that, very dangerous. And see what he did wrong here. I think anticipating down the line, being a little bit rushed, you know, and he's so good at this where he gets off the lip so quickly, but the board definitely going off kilter. Again, looking down the line, and he literally saw when he was in the maneuver, he's looking down the line, and that kind of takes the eye off the ball, and the board just kind of flipped underneath him. But wow, that was a close one.
Yeah, he throws that board, you know, like a pro dart player. He usually hits the bullseye, doesn't he? He's so good at placing his board on those little sections to project down the line.
And again, that's that equipment. I mean, he's using an epoxy surfboard with the styrofoam core, and it is a very alive feeling. And he has been, you know, using that type of material for several years. I mean, he was on the Firewire, same kind of construction, but it had the wood along the rails here. Now using the Slater designs, you know, a little bit different construction, but same core. So he's got that same feel. So he's very used to it.
Not a lot of championship tour victories between these two competitors, but they are some of the more successful surfers on the championship tour, and they both won the big one, Pete, the Pipe Masters. They'd love to get a JBay victory to go with it.
Oh, for sure. You know, and Michel, again, very well-rounded. You know, just one of the events that I think truly has been eluding him over the years is his home in Tahiti. I mean, you would think that he is very accustomed to Chopo and just has not been able to pull the results out there. You'd hope at some point it's going to be a turnaround for him. We're going there next. He's got a pretty good result here wherever he finishes, so he's going to always be kind of in that top 10. I mean, if you look at this round here, round 5, that keeps you qualified, keeps you safe. You know, it keeps you talking about that, you know, the mid-range score. But now, you know, the next step being quarterfinals, where you're talking top 10. You're going to keep that really solid seed throughout the year, but then semis and finals. So those are where your title contention. That's where you really truly want to be on a very consistent basis if you are talking about winning the big one. The big one being the world title.
Well, just under 14 minutes to go, Julian Wilson still in control at this stage. Michel Perez is still looking for a two-wave total of 15.95. Welcome back to the Corona Open JBay at the moment. Julian Wilson and Michelle Perez are battling for a spot in the quarterfinals. It is a battle between two surfers that have collected a number of championship tour victories between them, but they don't make this page, Pete. 137 victories shared between the competitors on the championship tour at the moment. 55 going to Slater.
I mean, that's the glaring number to me. I mean, as soon as he actually truly retires, that number of 137 is going to drop by a significant 55.
It's going to be such a hard number to track down too, because you've got to remember that when Kelly started first competing, there was a lot more
37 events a year or something crazy.
Events on the schedule, so it'll be remarkable if someone can get to that number. But Perez having a look at a wave there. Just not really going to plan this heat for him.
No, it's not. You know, and again, I'm loving the call, really, truly, because, you know, with all the bubbles that are coming off the channel there and the high tide, you know, I know it's pumping. There's going to be some amazing waves through this little break, but I feel like there is going to be some improvement in the afternoon.
So many good right-handers on this Cape, the Eastern Cape. Of course, you know who I saw in the competitors area just moments ago was Pat O'Connell, who was a star in The Endless Summer 2. Of course, the original movie is what really shone the spotlight on this part of the world. The perfect wave, it was said to be down at Cape St Francis. Bruce's Beauties. It was pretty good. A lot of surfers packed their bags and bought tickets, came to South Africa to check it out. And they discovered that it wasn't really that consistent. It was good when it was on, but it was rarely on. So they started looking around for other waves they could attack.
Well, look what they found.
They ended up here at Jeffreys Bay. Originally, around those late 60s, they were surfing down the line a little bit more, the wave a little bit slower, that pace, and then well, some guys started to venture up the point, which is just what you do on a point break too. How often do you find yourself wanting to sit at a spot and then all of a sudden you're at the top of the point saying, how did I end up here?
And then, you know, again, the equipment changes too. I think over the time, I mean, late 60s, they're still riding longboards for the most part. I mean, it started to see the shortboard revolution happening right then and there.
My dad was here in '69. He said the biggest.
What was his board size that he was riding? I mean, it would have been 72
board here, yeah, a big board. But the big difference is that there was no leg ropes. So every time you wiped out, your board was getting annihilated on the muscles on the inside.
So true. Then, of course, O'Neill. Pat O'Neill inventing the leash at that point, just slightly after that. Same thing at Santa Cruz, you know, a lot of the breaks there. Bunch of cliffs and rocks and enough ding repairs. you decide to figure out a way to fix that. Tie a rope to your leg.
So time ticking by. Michelle Perez, he needs to break this combination soon. I've heard Martin Potter say it before, it's a gentle combo at this stage. He only needs a two-wave total of 15.94. We've seen much loftier combinations broken already in this contest.
Yeah, but you know, the biggest enemy right there is that clock ticking away at 9 minutes. I mean, you look at how long this wave is. You're going to have to make a move pretty quickly here. And Julian holding that power position as well with priority. But again, if you talk about a gentle, you know, again, you're not going to need that super high quality wave. You can surf yourself to an excellent ride, or even just a 7.5 is going to, you know, get himself out. Even a 6 puts him out of combo where he only needs one wave.
Well, just over 8.5 minutes to go. Jordy Smith already through to the quarters, and it cost Connor Coffin his place in that same round. But Connor, what a great performance it was. Connor's with Rosie Hodge.
Well, Connor, two informed surfers meeting up in that round 5. Those ones are always so exciting to watch. For yourself, I know yesterday expended a lot of energy. Today, giving everything you have in that round 5.
Yeah, gave it everything I had in every heat. And they're taxing. I mean, the waves are so long, and then the paddle back's longer. So, yeah, I was pretty tired of even going out in that round 5 heat today. I can't even imagine being gnarly making it all the way to the final. But I don't know, even once I got out there, the waves were pumping, and after my first wave, I was like back in the pool, just forgetting that I was even tired and sore. So, yeah, I don't know, I never really got in the rhythm with the waves, and it was pretty devil wind all morning. It's really bumpy and it looks insane, but it's actually kind of hard to surf. I mean, that's being picky, it's firing, but I don't know, I just never really felt like I got in the right rhythm on my waves with connecting big turns. So, yeah.
And historically, yourself and Jordy have had such great battles. We think about the semi-final in Portugal. Is that in the back of your mind when you do battle against competitors?
No, not at all. I don't even think about that stuff. Jordy's an insane surfer out here and insane surfer everywhere, so it's always fun to surf against him, and would have been stoked to keep on going in the contest, but it's going to be absolutely ridiculous this afternoon once this wind changes, so it's going to be hard to watch.
And you know, you're still fresh in the wets, you've got the vest on, but we can't help but think about Tahiti. Your thoughts on that event?
Well, I haven't even thought that far yet. All I'm thinking about is how sore I'm going to be and how good that first cold beer is going to taste today.
Well, go enjoy it. You deserve it.
Thank you, Rosie. A great performance here at Jeffreys Bay, giving us some of the highlight moments. And Connor Coffin, he'll be making a jump up the leaderboard. You know, last year, Pete, he started so well, he fell off the pace, he saved his place on the tour with a final over in Portugal. This year, it just seems that he's evolved his surfing, he's evolved his strategy, and he should be sweet in cracking the top 22.
I would say so. You know, again, he's not going to have that struggle at the end of the season and have that stress. You know, this 9th place is going to be a good result. Interesting exchange that just happened, too. You know, Michelle Perez making another mistake. And Julian Wilson, you know, on a pretty good-looking wave, and seeing that Michelle had just made a mistake, kicks out and holds that priority position. I think it's so smart that Julian, you know, had the sense to see and understand and said, you know what, priority is going to be a much better advantage for me at the back half of the seat. I mean, let's see what happens here. You know, we were talking about the little bump on the face that has been affecting these guys, and it did definitely affect this ride for Michelle Perez. I mean, he was digging through it, and then here, just on the bottom turn, just skips out. You know, he gets around this section, but again, you see, first wave of the set really going to have all of that bump. There's a second wave, usually he'll groom it out, but at that point, I think, again, another situation where he was kind of looking a little too far forward and not really paying attention to the bottom turn and what was happening in that exact moment.
And that's the number, the 5.5.
Still pretty good.
I thought it was actually going to break combination at least. First turn was pretty solid. He got a few decent moves off.
I mean, we've seen it, you know, throughout this event. Those falls at the end of waves, you know, that incompleted ride affecting the score. You know, had he, say, kicked out clean, maybe that would have, you know, broke the combo, gone 6. But, I mean, the potential here is just such a long wave. You want to utilize every moment of it.
But often we hear from the judges it is what you've done on the wave, not what you didn't do. I just feel like sometimes it seems like people are penalised and they fall.
I mean, it's for me, it's human nature. I mean, you know, you want to see it control throughout. It's a whole entire presentation, and you know, when you show a falter or a fail, you know, it innately is going to affect the score.
Definitely, and probably here more than anywhere. You know, because there is so much potential that goes begging when you fall and that wave reels off without you. You're missing the opportunity to rack up a lot of points down the line. Just over 4 minutes to go here, Pete, and a beautiful looking set wave and a tough decision for Julian to make.
Absolutely, you know, and right now he is in sole possession of that, and he's going to commit here.
So he wants to get rid of the 7.77 and make that combination a little bit harder for Michelle to trace down. In cruise mode at the moment, allowing this wave to work itself out through the inside. He's going to pull up under the lip. A nice barrel, and he gets the exit. And still has some speed to find some more on the inside, really deep in this section. Doesn't find his way out.
You know, and even with this swell, as it matures, again, the direction, it moves underneath the country here. And so the swell direction changes with the maturity of the swell. And I truly believe this angle is making it a bit more challenging because it is making this wave very fast. And, you know, generally at high tide, you're going to see it be able to have that potential to stay open. But this one shuts down pretty quickly. But I feel like that barrel is pretty solid. I mean, we'll get a great angle of it here. You know, it didn't have a lot of high impactful turns on the outside, but sets this barrel up nicely. Carried some speed through it, and then now Impossible's being impossible with this angle. We'll see what Michel does here. I mean, this is an opportunity. You know, we're at that moment where he has to execute. Beautiful arc there. Big set wave and another mistake. That's cost him. That's the heat right there.
There's something that's going on with the wind out there at the moment, and that move for Michel Perez. He's not able to place his board where he usually does. He usually sticks those turns so easily, and he's gone down on a couple now.
You have to be so mentally focused, and I think Connor alluded to the fact that he woke up this morning a little bit sore and and tired, and I feel like everyone's going to be affected by that. As fit as Michel Perez is, a big day of surfing the day before, it's going to fatigue you. And again, if you didn't hydrate, if you didn't eat right, if you were so tired at the night, you didn't sleep well, sometimes there's restless sleep involved. All of that stuff comes and factors in. So maybe a little mental fatigue there.
Well, Julian didn't up the ante. He had a 6.5 on his last wave, a minute and a half to go. And Julian should have done enough here already to get the victory and earn that last place in the quarterfinals against Matt Wilkinson, because Michel's going to be struggling to catch 2 waves now.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's over. He knows it. Julian did well there at the very beginning of the heat to execute, get those 2 solid scores, and Michel was never able to fight back.
Sitting in 12th place on the leaderboard, Michel Perez. Probably a good chance of making up some ground. Sebastian Zietz was in 10th position. He fell out of the mix early.
I tell you, Michel Perez, in my eyes, he's had more 9th places than any other surfer I can remember. I mean, he can get to this round on a very consistent basis. And occasionally he gets through, into those quarters and semis. But he's always solid on tour because he's able to get to round 5.
30 seconds to go here. Let's see if Michel just gets an opportunity to ride with the jersey on. One more classic JBay wall. He has had a couple of highlight moves in this heat. So let's see if he can link one together. Drawing off the bottom. Nice hook and turn in the pocket. Deals with a tricky section there, bringing it through to the inside. And the heat has come to a close. So Michel knocked out here in round 5. Julian Wilson is taking that last place in the quarterfinals. A great heat with his good friend Matt Wilkinson.
Well, those quarterfinals are set, and it's going to be an exciting one. Of course, going on break now for a couple hours to let the tide move, but man, I can't wait to see what this afternoon's going to bring.
A healthy heat score total, almost into the 16-point range. Julian Wilson onto the quarters. We're going to take a quick break. Stick around for some highlights with Joe Tapel, Martin Potter, and Sean Thompson right after this.